I have a book called The Reality of ESP, and it has a nice aggressive subtitle called The Physicist's Proof of Psychic Ability. So my publisher said, no more Mr. Nice Guy, no more looking at ESP. You've either got it or you don't have it. So I said, let's call it a physicist's proof of psychic ability. And the idea is that the evidence for ESP and remote viewing is now so strong that it would be statistically unreasonable to deny it. And in the book, I make the argument that the National Institutes of Health, NIH, did experiments to see if aspirin would prevent heart attack. And after a year or so, with thousands of people, they found the people taking the aspirin had fewer heart attacks. So they stopped the experiment because it's unfair to have a placebo group who's having heart attacks while the other group is not. They say, we have proved that aspirin prevents heart attacks. And that all happened about a decade ago. And my point in the book, and I discuss this in the evidence that Jessica Us put together, is that the statistical evidence for ESP is 10 times stronger than the evidence that the NIH had to argue that aspirin prevents heart attacks. So if anything can be proved in experimental science, ESP has been proven to exist, and we don't have to apologize for it anymore. The proof issue has been handled. Yeah, in 1972, Ingo Swann came to SRI, and he taught Hal and me how to do remote viewing. So Hal and I started a program in the fall of 1972, and Ingo disagreed that we shouldn't waste his time looking into a box or looking into envelopes. He said, I can focus my attention anywhere on the planet, and you guys are trivializing my ability. So Ingo showed us what a remote viewer could do. So you could say Ingo taught Hal and me. Hal and I taught 6 Army intelligence officers at Fort Meade, and the Army taught the world. So that if you now go to Google and search for remote viewing, you find there's 2.5 million pages devoted to remote viewing. There's quite a lot of pages for a phenomena that's still not known to exist. The idea is that remote viewing is very easy to teach. So what happens is that as soon as a person learns to do remote viewing, they learn that swiftly in a workshop, and they say, well, that's really cool. I can do all kinds of interesting things, and it wasn't hard to learn. Maybe I'll teach people how to do that. So teaching remote viewing is like giving people permission to make use of an ability they already have. We're all remote viewers, and the job of a teacher, like Courtney and me and Lynn Buchanan and others, our job is to give people permission to unlock the potential that they have. In a way, you can't teach somebody to see, but you can convince them to open their eyes, and that's really what we're doing.
Now, I might add something to this. Everything that Russell said is absolutely correct. The only difference is that mostly in terms of myself, I'm mostly the chief investigator for science projects, and other people do the remote viewing when we do these science projects. However, the training for the people we use is at a much greater level. It's a little bit like playing the piano. So you can go up to a piano and you can bang on it and make noise. But if you want to play in Carnegie Hall, you're talking about a decade or more of constant practice, skill. There's talent involved, but it's also, sweat, perspiration involved. It's a lot of just hard work. And that's really what we're talking about. So the types of people who have participated in the projects that we've done in the Farsight Institute typically have a training period under Lynn or Glenn Wheaton of a decade or more. And they're really exceptional. So the types of data that you get from people like that, I call these military grade, but that's really not correct, because these are second generation or third generation trained remote viewers using these structured data collection procedures. And these people are absolutely extraordinary in coming up with data sets for the things that they're supposed to be perceiving that are absolutely detailed, extraordinarily accurate, it's totally different from what you get if you train somebody for, say, a day or a weekend. Because what happens is you can sort of give them permission to start getting access to this data. But if you want them to walk into a room, sit at a table, under totally blind conditions, double, triple, whatever blindness you want in terms of, they had no knowledge of the target, and then to come out later with 10 or 20 pages of very detailed data about those targets, about the things that they were supposed to be perceiving that they didn't know about, but that was part of the experimental design, that there's something called a target we can talk about later. If you want that to happen, 10 or 20 pages of detailed data, with a huge proportion of it to be accurate, with really clear pictures and really clear written work, then you need people that are really skilled at this. And those are the type of people that we work with at the Farsight Institute. I must admit, this is also one sort of an interesting thing. This whole field of remote viewing started with Russel Targ and Hal Puthoff. And it's very interesting that to this day, I'm going to say something that's going to sound like boasting, but it's not. So just hear me out. I am the leading scholar, the leading academic in the science of remote viewing as it is performed using the structured data collection procedures that were developed by the United States military and used for espionage purposes, or procedures that are derivative of those methodologies.
Well, I'd like to ask you a question, Courtney. I'd like to ask you, since you're claiming to be the leading academic, I'd like to ask you... Let me explain why. Ask you a question before you go into a long dissertation. You're claiming to be the leading academic, if I heard you correctly.
Yes.
And you're saying that the people you train are Carnegie Hall virtuoso doing Army quality remote viewing. But I'm not aware of any work that you've published in the open scientific literature demonstrating that. In our decade at SRI, we published in Nature the Proceedings of the Electrical Engineering Society, the AAAS, the American Institute of Physics. We did many, many double-blind formal remote viewings where people could get the right answer or they could get the wrong answer. We published these findings, and all the world knows the accuracy and the reliability of remote viewing as we do it at SRI. There are many people
wait a second, Russell,
there are many people who are doing something called controlled remote viewing who publish nothing, but they make great claims about your accuracy.
Russell, I didn't complain anything about the stuff you were doing. In fact, I was saying it was pioneering stuff and it was really great. But the issue about publishing stuff, we just had the type of remote viewers we work with are different. And I said I was the leading because, if you let me finish, I would have said, because I am the only academic. That's why I can say that. The thing that's so surprising is that I don't have any other academic colleagues anywhere that study remote viewing using these military procedures. Now, in terms of published stuff, you do know that I publish stuff. You read the Journal for Scientific Exploration, and in this year, just a few months ago, we had a study coming out in that, and that's one of the premier venues for this type of research, and it's the premier venue that you have used as well. And it was a study that came out at the Journal for Scientific Exploration. The title was Remote Viewing the Future with a Tasking Temporal Outbounder. And in fact, this was the very first publication that was ever appeared anywhere using these types of highly trained remote viewers. So
Did you do a number of different trials in this and compare accuracy and reliability?
Russell, I'm sort of flabbergasted that you haven't read the article. The article also has a great deal of background into the history of remote viewing research, and Russell's own work is prominently discussed, all in a positive manner in this article as well. So I am not saying anything that detracts from what you've done, but on the other hand, it's been a very hard slug out to get remote viewers who are highly influenced.
This experiment you did, how is the success or failure of individual remote viewings determined? If somebody forecasts an event in an alternative universe, it's very hard to tell. The whole idea of alternative universes is phenomenologically questionable, because you can never communicate with an alternative universe, nor can you get any information from it.
Okay, you're talking right off you're shooting from the hip now and haven't read the article.
The idea of the multiple universe is that there may be many, many millions of alternative universes created at the time of the Big Bang, and one of the properties of these multiple universes is we can't communicate with them and they can't communicate with us. So they're really not a great source of information. If I claim, for example, the universe full of very loquacious, intelligent Siamese cats, that's what I see psychically, and I can draw a picture of those Siamese cats in the alternative universe, you can neither falsify nor verify what I had to say. So,
you're building a straw man argument that is totally ridiculous.
I used to do stage magic, where I would stand on the stage and fool people. What I'm doing now is doing workshops. I've just written this book, which took me a year, presenting the very best data that's been published in scientific journals and was part of the Secret Army program, The Reality of ESP. But what I'm doing principally is teaching people how to be psychic, giving them permission. For example, Stephen Schwartz and I have a workshop in 2 weeks at the Omega Institute in New York. So Stephen and I will be teaching from the 26th to the 31st of August at the lovely Omega Institute up the Hudson River. We'll probably have 30 or so people, and at the end of that week, people will be able to accurately describe distant locations, hidden objects, things that they will see at a later time, and they will know for a fact that they were absolutely able to do that because they will see the object at a later time, and they will leave confident that they've been able to do remote viewing, that they've learned a skill that they can incorporate into their lives. And more than that, it gives them a very spacious picture of who they really are, because they can move their awareness into these timeless realms and realize that there's more to them than meat and potatoes and bones and sinews, that they are actually spacious beings.